All right, well, let's get started. Thank you so much for being with us. We are in a room at 125 Goodman here, and Stephanie is across the table from me. So we are in the same room, but across the table. All right, so first we want to know how you came up with the idea for this novel.
Is a long road, and which I maybe should be embarrassed to tell you, but I'll tell you anyway. It started about 8 years ago, and I met this family who'd lost a son, and they'd lost him. It was a tragic accident, and so they told me the story of how this came about, and I was really moved by it for obvious reasons, but also because they did not believe that he had actually passed away, and so they believed that for a long time they believed that he was returning to them, and these are not people who were delusional or who had mental challenges or anything like that. They were just people who couldn't accept the reality of the tragic situation. And so I started writing about that and thinking about who these people were and how they could handle that kind of tragedy and what loss like that means in a family and in a community. And I couldn't quite get a handle on it, that story. I mean, I think it's an important story, but I felt like that I never really could plumb the depths of it, and I was too close to the actual tragedy. So I started thinking about what I was really trying to write, what I was really writing. And I was writing a story about ghosts, about the things that haunt us in our lives, in our communities, our past that keep coming back to us and keep calling out to us and won't let us go anywhere sometimes, won't let us move forward. And so I started thinking about all of those kinds of issues. And I knew that my book, though, was about a return. And just as the family had expected for a long time the son to walk through the door, I knew that my book too was about that kind of expectation. And so then I started thinking about Gatsby and the ways in which the main character, or the title character at least, comes back to resume a life that he hopes that he can have, that he can take the past and relive it and redo it in some significant and important ways. And so I started thinking about that, and that became the kind of framework for the one of the many revisions, I should probably say, of the novel.
Right. When you just said reliving the past, we just had Reunion.
Yeah.
And that's actually the same vibe that we hope to create at Reunion, is just a weekend of reliving your past. So maybe that's another topic for your book, a reunion story.
That's right.
All right. So talking about the couple you met and drawing on them also, did you draw on Bethlehem at all for inspiration? As we know, Bethlehem and the town in the book have lost major industries, and they both now have casinos. So was that at all part of your thinking?
Absolutely. I really feel like that when you're writing, you're always taking from the environment where you are, And this is my home now, and I've been here for a few years, and the same kind of fuel that fuels the once thriving furniture towns was also here. The idea that what are we if we're not that, and trying to figure out what your new identity is, that sort of thing. And so, Bethlehem has, of course, gone through that, as did the town where I'm from, and a lot of small towns that relied on industries that, for the most part, are defunct. And so having to reassess that moment when you think, okay, what do I do now? So, and that's certainly here in Bethlehem, but there also, there's this kind of vitality here, and this artistic thrust that is also there, that I really wanted to at least hint at in the book. That it feels like, people talk about these dead towns, and it may feel like it's dead, but it's not. It might slumber for a minute. It might need some time to kind of build back up, but not dead. Right. So I wanted some of that to be there too.
Right. So speaking of the writing, what is your writing process? You said it took 8 years. Is that typical for, for a novel, or is that just your pace, or did you start and stop and start and stop? What is the actual process?
I think that I could have finished a version of this book, the version that I finished earlier. Didn't take. It took about 3 years, and I could have finished a version of it. But I knew it wasn't right. I knew it didn't do some of the things I really wanted to do, and it didn't do those kinds of exploration that I wanted to do about community and about race and about nostalgia. And I think nostalgia is an amazing emotion. You're thinking about reunions and thinking about the nostalgia for the past, and it can be reinvigorating. You go to the reunion, you see, there were people there I loved, and there were things there I really wanted, and some of those things came true, and how wonderful that is. And if you can be in that space and nostalgic, that it pushes you forward. Now I can move forward in my life. But if you live in that place of nostalgia, then that's a dangerous place. And so I wanted to explore all of those kinds of ideas, and I felt like that the first version didn't do that. And so it took a long time for me. I'm sure that other writers could do it faster. It just happened to take a while for me. I'm hoping, this is not wood, but I'm hoping, not particle board. The next one I'm hoping will not take that long.
Now you came up with that conclusion on your own, or did you have people read it for you? Are you part of a writer's group or a publisher or friends that also read it and gave you that feedback?
No, I do have writer friends that see some versions of things, and that's one of the things I talk to my students about. It's really important to cultivate a group of people, or at least another person, just another person that you trust and who won't hurt you. Who can read and say, there's something valuable here, but this is not working. That person is your friend, and so you need that person as a writer. And so I do have people like that, but I don't have a writers group anymore, though I do meet with groups of writers, if that distinction makes sense. But I do like that community, and I think it's really important to have at least some version of that community if you want to write.
Right. We had a good question here from Jennifer Blankfein, class of '89. She said, "Hi, Stephanie. I was wondering if you connected your book to Gatsby, or if that came from your publisher or from somewhere else."
It came from me, and it's I really started thinking about Gatsby in earnest when after the first version of the book kind of went kerplunk, and I really started thinking about what Gatsby's about, because I think it's a masterpiece. It is certainly flawed, and there are things about it that I question, but that's any work of art. But what I wanted to do is the general structure of that book I really wanted to showcase in my book. So it did come from me, but it's not a retelling of Gatsby, and it's not an adaptation, and there are no big parties. I should have had at least one party, so people could dress up. But there's none of that, and there's no one-to-one. Like, you won't find Myrtle Wilson or something. Some of the bigger main characters. We won't necessarily find those characters in my book, but just the basic the themes of the book, the basic movement of the book, and also just the sort of feeling that the book has, the mood of it. Right. This idea of going back and trying to figure out what was good, and if you can leave it, and if you can't move forward, you don't make it out of the past. And so I wanted to showcase that. And hey, Jennifer.
Mitch has a good question. Mitch is class of '78. How does the title relate to the book's contents?
The title, that's one of the questions that I get a lot with this book about the title. And I wanted to have this moment, I wanted to show this moment that when you feel like things are really bad, or you feel like that your life has fallen apart or broken into pieces, and you have that really grief-struck moment, and you say to yourself, now what do I do? It numbs you, binge watch Columbo, or I'm probably revealing too much, but you do what you have to do to kind of gather your strength back up, and you realize, okay, nobody's coming, I've got to figure it out. And so sometimes you can't. I mean, and that's the depression, or that's the weight of whatever has fallen on you. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't for a while, but eventually you have to figure out, where can I move to?
Right.
And I think that a move, I just read something I thought was really wonderful about this kind of numbness, and that the antidote to numbness is an aesthetic antidote, that anesthesia is the lack of beauty, is the lack of art. And so look to the aesthetic, or to the beautiful, or the artistic, that's something that makes you think beyond yourself and above yourself, and that is the antidote to that kind of gobsmacked, numbness that sometimes we feel in all kinds of reasons.
Right.
So that's where the title comes from. That there's that moment. Oh my goodness, nobody's coming. Now I have a choice.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
And so you came up with that title, and I guess also with the artwork of the book. I know that's a huge thing in marketing books.
Yeah.
Did you get any pushback from your publisher about either the artwork on the book or the title, and how that process worked?
I was afraid that she wouldn't like the title, that my editor would think, and we had a conversation about it. She actually loved the title, but we did worry that it might be a little bleak, that people might think, oh, this is a zombie book or something, or some kind of apocalypse book,
Right.
So we did worry about that, but she loved the title, and so that really worked out.
Okay.
The cover, she gave, I had a few choices about the cover art, and this is the one that I felt like really spoke to some of the themes in the book, because the book is so much about home, and what home is, and who is home to you. And so, but I didn't want a grand house, I didn't want a mansion, and so it's a very simple, modest home with telephone lines, which I love, so that there is some connection to other people and the other world. So I really loved this cover, and we went with this.
Neat. Let's see. So Jennifer has another question about, have you been approached for a movie adaptation? So exciting that your book appeared on an Oprah list. And then she asks about the book tour.
Oh, I was talking with my agent about an adaptation, and I've talked to people. You're not allowed to say, so okay. I can't say, but it's one of those things that you talk to people, and whenever somebody tells you about this kind of thing, it may never happen.
Right.
Even if they option it, you may never go to a movie and see it.
Right.
So I mean, I'm thrilled at that prospect, because I'd love to see what someone else could do with it, and what their how they would take the kind of raw material and reinterpret it. I think that would be really interesting.
Right.
But other than that, it's I just try to put it in the back of my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and of course you figured out the stars that would play all your characters.
Oh sure.
Right?
Oh sure. Oh, I went to high school with Zach Galifianakis, so he's got to be in there somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how, but he's got to be there somewhere.
Marty Janusa has a question. I was wondering how your publishing process was, if you used an agent, how you found your publisher, all of that kind of process. I'm guessing, and they haven't told me, but I'm guessing there are some aspiring writers here on the webinar, so I think this will be a helpful question, how you went about that.
Yeah, I hope so. And if there are, I really I want to say that I don't come from any people who know anything about this, so so I hope that will be of some interest to people who want to write. But querying an agent is something that almost everybody has to do, and you write letters. Sometimes you're able to meet them at conferences, that kind of thing. In my case, my first publisher knew an agent he thought would be a really good fit for me. So I contacted her and asked her, and said, will you think about this? And that's how we got together. But sometimes you have to do it if you don't have other publications, and you're doing it cold. Get the manuscript done. Mm-hmm. They really don't want to talk with you until your manuscript is done, especially with fiction. With nonfiction, you can have a proposal, or you can have a few chapters, or a few essays. But with fiction, because everybody knows about that novel that's in the drawer, and there are a lot of people with those, kind of third done novels, that type of thing. So it's really important to have it done, or to have it almost done, or a place where you can get it done if the agent is interested. And I think there are lots of people. Steve Allman is famously did not have an agent for a long time, and he's a really wonderful writer. But most people do, and it's because they know the ropes, they know the business, and it's akin to a real estate agent. Right. You can go without one, but it's a big learning curve if you don't. And so just query agents and look for people who are representing people that you love, or representing people who have the same kind of aesthetic that you have, that sort of thing. And so this is a research kind of process, figuring out who the agent is, who might be interested in you, figuring out if that is an agent who is interested in taking on new clients, because that's a big deal, that kind of thing. Right. And so then you query them and see, and it's a lot of this you can do online, so that's helpful. You don't have to do it. You don't have to write letters, and there's no. That used to be called over the transom, because there was the window that people would throw there, but it's online. So and so that's the first thing. Now the agent, you want an agent who absolutely believes in you. If you have an agent who's like, well, okay, or an agent who's really working for superstar number 1, 2, and 3, and you're kind of on the side, even if that agent is not the agent to the stars, or you want someone who really cares about your work and believes in you, and that's a big deal. And so sometimes I think people are so excited if they get one. It's and I had a first agent like that, who really was much more interested in her stars, and so she didn't have time for me. And so if I just happened to get, and so it's really, that's something to be careful of. And this is your work. This is something that you care about. You're representing real people in the world. It's important work, and it's time consuming, and it is not usually financially rewarding. It is something you do because it's important and because you love it. So don't give it away. Don't just give it to anybody who's not going to treat it with the care that you need them to. So that's the first process. And then once the agent feels like the manuscript is in good enough shape, then that person will contact editors that he or she knows. And so then that's the next process. And it's exciting and it's crazy, but it's also fun. It's a good way to spend a life, I think.
Well, and a little plug that, we have a blog here at Lehigh called The Goblet, and we are always looking for alumni to write stories, factual stories for the most part, for us. So if you're interested in seeing your work published, send a note to me, and maybe that gives people, I don't know if that would count as being a published writer. That would help them if they could say to a agent, yes, I've written on Lehigh's blog.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so Cheryl has a question. Are you from North Carolina or some other part of the South? And if not, what helped you step into that geographic space and culture?
I am from North Carolina. It's I've been here a long time though, and I've been away from North Carolina for a while. But most of my family is still in the South and still in North Carolina, and there's so many things about it that I understand, and things that I'm trying to understand. And so I feel like that when I return, I'm a little bit removed from it, you know. I mean, it's not exactly an immigrant story, but something like it, you know, coming back to the place where you felt at one time that this was your home and this is where you were, and were in the big sense of that, and then stepping out of it and not feeling quite that connection to it. And so, but I think that is a helpful view for a writer. And I would encourage anyone, if you are writing or aspiring to write or trying to write, to get out of your space, even for a little while. You know, Maya Angelou used to go to hotels, you know, to write, which, you know, I mean, everybody can't do that. But if you can, just to change your space, you know, I've worked all over the Lehigh Valley in coffee shops, at Wegmans, you know, anywhere there's a place where, you know, for me to put my computer, you know, just to change my space up, to get new people around me, and, you know, to have a little bit, you know, writing is lovely, have a little bit of ambient noise, you know, that kind of thing. So, but I do think that it's important to get out of the space so that you can see it more clearly, you know, when you're away from something, there's just a different kind of perspective. And so that's important, I think.
Right. Well, especially if you're writing about nostalgia, when you go home to North Carolina, like, you may not have that if you stayed there and wrote just about there.
Yeah.
So when you were writing, you know, everybody dreams about the next great Gatsby or the next great American novel. Did you have any idea when you started writing how popular this would become? Is that, you know, was that your dream for it, or did you just want to write and produce something that was sort of internally something you were proud of, or did you have the dream?
Oh, yeah. You know, you want it on every newsstand, you know. I mean, and there's that kind of bestseller, you know, dream that I think that everybody kind of has when you're writing something. But you know, it's one of those sorts of things. I'm not saying that it's not important, and it is important, and I'm really humbled and grateful, but for the people who've written really good things about it, or people who care about it, and that's wonderful. But, you know, the next thing, it might not be so great, or, you know, it might not be critically acclaimed, you know,
and start out so high.
And so, you know, you have to kind of think, okay, I'm doing the work I want to do, and I'm doing what I'm hoping is the best work I can do right now, and sort of roll with that. Otherwise, you'll always be in crazy mode, you know, looking at the review. Well, this one said, and that one, why didn't they say, or that's not right, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I just can't do that. You know?
Well, and is there a temptation, now that you sort of know this book was a hit, and you know that it sells, you know, is there a temptation with the next book to almost write towards the market, you know, versus what you want to write about? Is there any talk with your editor or publisher about, well, that sounds like a great idea, but that's not selling, like vampire books are selling, or whatever the hot topic is? Do you feel that pressure, and do you bow to it, or you just do what you want to do?
No. I feel like my editor, my publisher are really wonderful. They want me to write what I want to write, and especially with literary fiction, there's less of a push in that direction, you know. And so, because you might start writing something about, I don't know, there are several books that have girl in the title, you know, like and about Girl on the Train, and, you know, The Woman in Cabinet, you know, that type of thing. And so this idea about women in violence, or women in sort of mystery, that kind of thing. By the time I get it done, I mean, maybe nobody cares about that sort of thing now, you know. So I think it's folly if you really want to write to try to anticipate the market. You don't know what it's going to be, and, you know, and if I could write it and get it out in 30 days, you know, maybe, but it would be so awful that it wouldn't matter anyway. So I, you know, I don't know. I think that poverty, maybe that's part of it, has, you know, because I'm not afraid of that. And so I'm not afraid that, oh, well, maybe I won't have a lot of money. Well, well, I've not had a lot of money. It's okay,
Right.
So it's, so no, I don't try to anticipate. I couldn't do it if I tried. Nobody can do it, Even the publishers are, looking for that next 50 shades of whatever,
Right.
and
Right, right. So we have let's see, a question there. So Jennifer asks, how important are book reviews and Amazon? And then the meeting with book groups. Do you ever meet with book clubs and book groups?
Yeah, I do.
And I think I mentioned at the very beginning that we're going to be sending out and marketing the book tour. So if you're in a city where, how many stops do you have on your book tour so far? Do you know?
I don't remember, but I'll be in quite a few places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll send that out to our alumni, especially our alumni volunteers, and try to get them rallied around those. But then the other question, the book reviews, and I guess there are two types of book reviews, the ones from the professional book reviewers, and then the Amazon, rate this book. And how did you read them? Are they important?
I read some of them. I really try not to. It's maybe I'm being a little too thin-skinned about it, but I really try not to. I think they're great forums for people, and for people to have an opportunity to say how this affected them, and I think that's great. But you read this character, and it's something that your character didn't do, and you want to say, no, that's wrong, and that's in professional and and readers, lay readers. So so I try not to read them, for that reason. But I do think that they're important, and just with when I go on Amazon and I'll look at some of the reviews. I really try not to look at if there's a book that I want to buy or something. I try not to look at the really negative ones, because there's something, really irked the person in that review. So I try to stay away from those and kind of just read sort of the best ones or the middle of the road ones to, but I mean, that's my own kind of personal preference, but I do think they're helpful. I think they give you, if there's a book that's not reviewed at all, I would wonder about it, and if you see a book, it has 3,000 reviews, there's just something psychologically that's helpful about that, so.
Good. So on these book tours, and I think we're running out of time, right? So on the book tours, what is the most common question or comment that the audience asks you? And have you seen any themes based on the audience locations or ages or anything like that? Not really, but people always ask about Gatsby. That's one thing. People always ask about the South. They're really interested in the New South and trying to figure out what that is. And how it might have changed. And this is both in the South and elsewhere. People are interested in that. There's so many different kinds of questions, but I've gotten lately, and this could be too because I've spoken with a lot of groups where there are a number of women, but about the mother-daughter. People are really interested about the mother-daughter connections in the book, and how I depict them and what I think about that. And so that's been a topic that's come up in probably the last half dozen or so, which has really been interesting. And it is a book that I hope will be that speaks to the really difficult and wonderful relationship that can be with mothers and daughters. But and I do have a number of, the mother that is not seen is the mother of one of the main characters, Sylvia, and she was a narcissist, and she didn't want these children, and she made that clear to them. And so how these women were able to cope with that, one didn't have children, and one tried to compensate, but found herself in some of the same sorts of patterns. And so so I've got a lot of good discussion about that. Yeah, good. All right. So we have one more question, but I don't think we're going to have time for that. So, Robert, thank you for your question. I will ask Stephanie to write her response to you. But thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you for taking time out of your day
Thank
to
you.
come up here and speak with us. And like I said, hopefully we'll get get some alumni to your events, and so people can continue to follow you and your stardom. All right, thanks everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you.